Well, after a dramatic midseason exit from the Cleveland Browns, Odell Beckham Jr. played a key role in the Rams' success. LA took him to their ranks, and together they reached a Super Bowl, lifted the trophy against the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you might recall, Beckham went down with a torn ACL during the game. Certainly has had an effect on him in this free agent market. He's still awaiting a proposal from an NFL team. In 8 regular season games with LA, the 3-time Pro Bowler hauled in 27 catches for 305 yards, 5 touchdowns. In the postseason, 21 pass catches for 288 yards, 2 touchdowns across 4 games. When you look at the most receiving touchdowns since Week 10, that's when he made that time over to LA. You see Odell is 7th on that list. All right, let's welcome in our fantasy guru, Dave Richard. We're going to take a little journey through the free agency, and as we like to call it, some free agency fantasy fits.
Okay.
On this Friday. Lots of F's going on. We're going to start with
Sounds
Odell
like high
Beckham
school
Jr.
for me.
Sounds like that's what we're here for. All right, we're starting with OBJ. He had success in LA, of course. You're still trying to see how he's going to recover from that injury he had in the Super Bowl. Give us some landing spots. Where do you like him?
The 32 teams in the NFL also want to see how he recovers from this ACL because he proved in the Super Bowl that he can still be an effective downfield wide receiver. And I don't think anybody's expecting him to be OBJ when he was with the Giants, but they're not going to expect OBJ with the Browns either. They're looking for a receiver who can be an impact player. And if I had to pick one team, Jenny, let's see, is there a team in the NFL that needs a wide receiver and has a really good quarterback, and maybe they have Super Bowl aspirations too?
I think
the Green Bay Packers come to mind.
Have you heard of them?
Wouldn't Aaron Rodgers love to have somebody like Odell Beckham at the other end of a lot of his targets? Definitely better than Allen Lazard, definitely better than Christian Watson, definitely better than Romeo Doubs, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, all the guys that they have already. He'd be great, and I can't expect him to be ready for the start of the year. But by the time we get to Halloween, he should be ready to go. He would be a treat for the Packers. Fantasy managers would be taking him in the middle rounds if he signed with Green Bay. I just got him in a draft this week in round 14. That's at the end of the line. Hopefully he ends up coming through. So taking a late round stab at him at this point, if you're in a best ball draft, completely worth it. I do expect him to play this year.
Until then, he will be just hanging out courtside at the Suns game. I don't know if you saw that, but his girl was looking good. All right, continuing on.
Don't tell my wife that I noticed.
I know. I think everyone noticed. All right, we're going to talk Jarvis Landry next. Last season, Landry posted career lows in receptions, yards, touchdowns. The Browns released him in March after the two sides couldn't reach an agreement there. So where does he end up?
He also should go to a team that can contend for a Super Bowl and that has a good quarterback and has a little bit of a wide receiver need. And obviously, if he went to Green Bay along with Odell Beckham, that would be cool. But he's not the downfield playmaker that Odell Beckham can still be. He's more of that safety net, short area target. We've seen him line up in the slot and get a bunch of catches year after year. I'd like to see him go to the Dallas Cowboys, who low-key don't have a great receiving core right now. They've got CeeDee Lamb. They traded away Amari Cooper to the Browns, and they've replaced him with James Washington. They drafted Jalen Tolbert. Michael Gallup is coming back from his own ACL tear. I think Landry would fit in there, be a good asset for Dak Prescott to lean on. And I think for however long that Gallup would be out, you'd see Jarvis Landry come through with maybe 6-7 targets per game. That would be 5 or 6 catches for him. Gives you a nice floor in PPR. He's also worth a late round pick.
My husband would definitely approve that move. Big Cowboys fan over there. And after not missing a single game for the first 6 years of his career, Landry, he had sat out 6 total for the past 2 seasons. So, of course, you got to worry about the injury history there, too.
Injury history, age, and he wouldn't have...
29, though, right?
Well, but in the NFL, that's kind of old. We don't...
Oh, goodness, great.
Young for us up here.
Yeah, of course.
Old for them. Look, I mean, he'd be okay there. He'd be a good number 3 receiver, maybe in full PPR.
All right, we're going to move on now to Julio Jones. The experiment just lasted 1 season in Tennessee. That's all we gave him, with the 7-time Pro Bowler being cut by the Titans in March. So where does he fit in now?
I think you reunite him with Matt Ryan. And we used to say you reunite him with Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Everybody knows Matt Ryan isn't in Atlanta anymore. It's Indianapolis. And when you look at this Colts receiving core, everybody's excited about Michael Pittman. But who else is there? They don't have T.Y. Hilton anymore. I don't think they're re-signing him. They drafted Alec Pierce. That's a guy I love, by the way. For those of you in rookie-only drafts, Alec Pierce, remember the name? And they've also got Paris Campbell, who's a slot receiver, who I also like, but he's gotten hurt a ton. Now, Julio also gets hurt a ton. But he's going to be a cheap deal for the Colts, a big physical outside presence that Matt Ryan already has synergy with. I think if he went to Indianapolis, He'd go well ahead of Jarvis Landry in fantasy drafts, and he might go ahead of Odell Beckham, even if Beckham went to Green Bay. People remember the name Julio Jones, and they just want to have a piece.
Yeah.
And if they can get him in round 7, when we used to draft this guy in late round 1, early round 2, they'll take him. And Indianapolis' offense, we know they've got Jonathan Taylor. We know they're going to want to run the football a lot. Having Julio there, and if he can just stay healthy for half the year, should be able to help fantasy managers 5-6 games with good fantasy production.
Yeah, you have to think like it's a little bit of a leap of faith because of the injury history there. But if his body's right, there's huge upside. So, and he's got the name.
Well worth the risk for the Colts if they decide to go that way.
Yeah, speaking of a name that we all know and love, Rob Gronkowski. Even at 32, you got to wonder what Gronk's going to do. One of the top tight ends in the game. You figure he's either going to play in Tampa Bay or not play at all. But what do you think?
There were rumors that he was interested in Buffalo. He grew up in Buffalo, and it would make sense if he went to Buffalo.
Family's still there too.
I know, but his real family's Tom Brady.
I know.
And he wants to stay with Daddy. Tom Brady feeding him the football. That sounds like a success. I've already got him ranked as if he's staying in Tampa Bay anyway. I'm drafting him as if he's a top 10 fantasy tight end right now, and it's pretty good value. You're talking about round 8 or round 9 for Rob Gronkowski, who is a little touchdown dependent. You're not going to see a lot of games from him where he gets you 6+ catches or 80+ yards, but he will find the end zone. He will be one of 2 big-time end zone targets for Tom Brady, especially early on in the season if Chris Godwin isn't ready to go. So I love the idea of waiting a little bit on draft day to get a tight end like Rob Gronkowski, assuming that he's back with the Bucs.
And we will soon find out about that, we all hope. Gronk posted the 7th most receiving yards among tight ends, and that was only in 12 games that he played last season. All right, next up we have Sony Michel, fresh off winning his 2nd Super Bowl. Recently visited the Dolphins, also saying that he's potentially going to see the Saints. He is one of the top remaining free agents there. Where do you like him?
I would like him to go to either Atlanta or Houston, and if I got to make a call, I'll go with Atlanta. I'll say that the Falcons are the team that could use him the most. I don't like their running back group right now. They've got an interesting rookie in Tyler Algier, but they drafted him on day 3. I don't know how impactful he'll be. And they've got Cordell Patterson. Talking about age, that's somebody who's well past 30. You don't like to take guys that play running back at 30, especially when they're former wide receivers. Sony's a professional wideout. He went to Georgia. He knows the area. I guess that's good for like real estate. Maybe not so good for fantasy, but he would get an opportunity to be the lead running back, at least to begin the year for the Falcons. I don't necessarily think it's the greatest fit, but it's better than Houston. I would consider him a number 3 running back if he went to the Falcons.
Yeah, and this past season carried 845 yards, 4 touchdowns, but a lot of that was because of the Cam Akers injury. So you got to see how that's going to play out this
Opportunity means everything in fantasy.
I know. And staying healthy means everything, that's for sure. All right, we're going to focus on 2 veteran quarterbacks that just are trying to figure out where their next home is going to be. We got Cam Newton and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So Fitzpatrick's 39 years old. He's no Tom Brady when it comes to age. And then you got Cam, the former MVP of the NFL. He's had just a roller coaster career. Where do you like these guys? What do you think is going to happen?
I think the only place that makes sense for Cam is Carolina. And I know he didn't look good at all with the Panthers last year when he went there. And it was a good feel-good story. He had 1 good game for fantasy. But I would imagine that if Sam Darnold busts out again and if Matt Corral isn't ready to go, Cam would be a fit there. And I think he would be decent for fantasy. You'd use him as a number 2 fantasy quarterback. But the one that I'm actually excited about is Ryan Fitzpatrick going to Seattle. I don't know if he's the best.
As far as personality goes, he's fantastic.
Sure. If I went to go kick back a couple of beers with a retired or not quite retired, maybe
complete genius
quarterback and a genius, it would be Ryan Fitzpatrick. His kid could do math with us and it would be great. But I want to see him drop bombs to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick loves to fix in on one wide receiver and just go crazy. He doesn't care. He just wants to get touchdowns and a bunch of big plays. He can get that from 2 guys, Lockett and Metcalf. Because right now we're looking at Lockett and Metcalf with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, and I'm scared. And I don't want to draft them and feel good about them when those 2 duds are throwing them passes. Give me Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know it sounds crazy. The words coming out of my mouth are weird. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is better for Metcalf, better for Lockett than Drew Lock, Geno Smith, or anybody else that the Seahawks have.
The words coming out of your mouth feel weird. Dave Richard, everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. It is never too early to talk about fantasy football.
Never.
And if you want to dominate your league, you've got to check out Fantasy Football Today. Our guys, they will have you covered with all the latest news, commentary, getting you ready to win your league. Check it out today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.